Leviticus 12, the blood of her cleansing, fire, blood, and the eighth day. Part 1, the shadow made flesh. Why Leviticus 12 changes everything. Peace, family. You are tuning in to another episode of Yah First Ministries with Brother Bet Sadeh Lamed Aleph Lamed. And if you are here right now, it means Yah has drawn you. There's no coincidence in that. Listen, we are about to crack open one of the most deliberately obscured chapters in all of Scripture, a passage so loaded with prophetic weight and engineering blueprint that the serpent seed gatekeepers have spent centuries trying to keep our people from understanding what it really means. This chapter, it got buried under layer upon layer of religious pageantry, false interpretation, and intentional misdirection. They needed you to miss this. Today we are breaking down Leviticus chapter 12 verse by verse, but we are not doing the milk-feeding surface reading that has you thinking this is just about a woman getting cleansed after childbirth and then going back home. That is exactly what they want you to believe. The real teaching in Leviticus 12 is a shadow, a technical blueprint encoded in flesh and blood that points directly to what Yod-Heh-Wash-En Ayin was going to do when he walked on this earth. It is a prophecy hidden in ritual law. It is engineering data disguised as ceremonial requirement, and when you understand what it actually says, you will realize that the physical circumcision of a male child on the 8th day is not about a knife and skin. It is about something spiritual so profound that the entire new covenant stands on it. Here is what we are covering today in part 1. We are going to establish the foundation of what shadow and substance mean in Scripture, because if you do not understand that concept, everything else breaks down. We are going to break down the structure of Leviticus 12, the timings, the numbers, the rituals, and show you that every single detail is a code. We are going to reveal what the 8th day really means and why circumcision on that specific day matters more than most preachers could even conceive. And we are going to begin bridging the gap between the old physical order and the new spiritual order that Yod-Heh-Wash-En Ayin established when he came in the flesh. By the time we get through all 4 parts of this episode, you are going to see Leviticus 12 not as an old law about blood and ritual, but as a prophecy written in flesh and timing that changed everything. The shadow versus the substance. What the hell are we actually reading? Let me ask you a straight question. When you read a passage in Torah about physical rituals, circumcision, burnt offerings, purification blood, feast days, are you reading history? Are you reading instructions for the day? Or are you reading prophecy disguised as ceremony? The answer is that you are reading all 3, and most churches have been trained to see only the first one and ignore the other 2. That is how you keep a people ignorant. Listen to what Yod-Heh-Wash-En Ayin himself said when he was walking the earth. Matthew chapter 5 verse 17 says this: "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." The word fulfill in the Greek is plerou, which means to complete, to fill up, to bring something to its full expression. He was saying, every single law you see in Torah, every ritual, every ceremony, every type, every shadow, these things point to me. I am the substance. The law was the shadow. Now the real thing has come. This is fundamental. Hebrews chapter 10 verses 1 through 2 says, "For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those same sacrifices which they offered year by year make the comers thereunto perfect. For then would they not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshipers, once purged, should have had no more conscience of sins." Do you see it? The law had a shadow of good things to come. Not the things themselves, a shadow, a preview, a technical diagram of what was coming. And that shadow pointed to one person, Yod-Heh-Wash-En Ayin. When he came, the shadow was fulfilled. The substance replaced the shadow. The reality made the image obsolete. Now here's the question that wakes people up. If the entire Old Testament system was a shadow pointing to Yod He Wah Shin Ayin, then what is Leviticus 12 a shadow of? What real thing was it predicting? What was the purpose of these specific timings, these specific numbers, this specific ritual? The answer is spiritual circumcision through the power of the name, Yod He Wah Shin Ayin. That is what this is about. Not a knife cutting flesh, not blood spilled for washing, something far deeper. Breaking the code, numbers, timing, and the blueprint. Let me read you the raw text first. Leviticus chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed, and born a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. According to the days of the separation for her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Stop. 7 days. Then the 8th day. That is not random. That is a code. Here's what most pastors do with this verse. They read it as literal timeline. A woman has a baby boy. She is unclean for 7 days. On day 8, the baby gets circumcised. And then she needs to stay unclean for 33 more days. They treat it like a hospital protocol. Here's your recovery schedule. And then they move on to the next chapter and never ask, why these numbers? Why this structure? Why the 8th day specifically? But the Paleo-Hebrew letters that spell out the numbers are themselves data. When you break this down using Sefer Yetzirah, the master engineer's manual for how creation operates through the letters and numbers, you are not reading a ceremonial schedule. You are reading reality architecture. The number 7 in Hebrew is Zion. The Paleo-Hebrew pictograph for Zion is a weapon or sword. It means cut, pierce, separate. And symbolically, 7 represents completion, a cycle fully turned. After 7 days of separation, the cycle of the natural is complete. The woman has completed her natural restoration. But on the 8th day, the day after completion, something supernatural happens. The number 8 in Paleo-Hebrew is not represented by a single letter. 8 is beyond the first 7, which means it is transcendence. It is beyond the cycle of nature. It is new order. When Yod He Wah Shin Ayin rose from the dead, which day was it? The first day of the week, which is also the 8th day if you count from creation's 7th day Sabbath. The cycle turned, the old order completed. On the 8th day, the new order begins. This is not metaphor. This is engineering. Now look at what happens on that 8th day. The flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. The foreskin is the covering. It hides. In the Hebraic worldview, what covers something masks its true nature. When Yah told Abraham about circumcision in Genesis chapter 17, he was not talking about hygiene. He was establishing a sign, a visible mark that said, this person is marked for my covenant. This person's flesh has been cut away in the place of conception. The covering is removed. But here is what breaks everything wide open. Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 6 says this, And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Not the flesh, the heart. Spiritual circumcision. The same concept, a cutting away of the covering that hides the true nature, but applied to the spirit, not the body. This is the shadow versus the substance. The physical circumcision on the 8th day was the shadow. The substance is spiritual circumcision of the heart through the power of Yod He Wah Shin Ayin's name. And when did this spiritual circumcision come? When Yod He Wah Shin Ayin rose on the 8th day, the day beyond the natural cycle. When he established a new covenant, he cut away the old system. He circumcised hearts spiritually. This is not theory. This is what the text says. The woman, the blood, and the real purification. Now let's dig into verses 4 through 5. This is where the structure gets graphic. And when you understand what it means, you will see why the serpent seed went so hard to hide this layer. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 30 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation. And she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 60 days. Let me ask you something. Why is the timeline different for a male child versus a female child? The woman is unclean for 7 days if she has a boy, but 14 days if she has a girl. Then she must continue in the blood of purifying for 33 days if it is a boy, or 66 days if it is a girl. That is a factor of 2, double. Why? Here's what the preachers tell you. Well, in the ancient world, women were less valued, so they needed more purification time. That is the surface reading, and it is bullshit, designed to keep you from seeing the real engineering underneath. Let me break this down with the Paleo-Hebrew. The number 33 for a boy is 3 10s plus 3 1s. In Paleo-Hebrew, got its yud appearing 3 times. The Paleo-Hebrew letter yud is pictographically a hand. It represents work, action, execution. 3 times yud equals completed action, repeated to completion. 3 10s equals the number of man applied to divine work. For a girl, the number is 66. 6 10s plus 6 1s. That is double the male timeline. And 6 in Paleo-Hebrew is the number of man. Mem Lamed. Maleness appears in the structure of 6-fold. But 66 is 6 times 10, which means mankind multiplied by mankind. The cycle of human reproduction doubled. Why? Because the child determines the spiritual significance. A male child coming from a woman's womb is the continuation of the covenant line through the patrilineal seed. But the sex of the child is not the real point. The point is what the child represents prophetically. Now here's the real revelation. The woman must continue in the blood of her purifying. Not just bloodshed, the blood of purification. She is covered in the blood that came from her own body. In Paleo-Hebrew, blood is spelled Dalet Mem, dam. Dalet is a door or pathway. Mem is water or chaos. Blood is the pathway through chaos. Blood is what flows and connects and carries life. And what does this blood represent? Covenantal connection through the seed. The woman has born a child of the covenant. She is separated from the sanctuary, not because she is unclean in the sense of wicked. She is separated because her body has been marked by the covenant sacrifice. She cannot touch hallowed things because she is sanctified with the mark of life given. She is too holy to enter the normal sanctuary because her body has literally participated in the making of new covenant members. This is not degradation. This is elevation. She has been marked by her participation in continuing the bloodline of Yah's people. The bloodshed is the sign of that mark. The offering, when perfection comes through sacrifice. Now we get to verses 6 through 8, and this is where every church completely misses what is actually happening. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest, who shall offer it before the Lord, and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that hath borne a male or a female. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. Stop right here. Let me ask you the question that nobody asks. Why does a woman who has born a child need a sin offering? She gave birth. She did not commit adultery. She did not steal. She did not murder. She performed one of the most holy acts a woman can perform. She brought forth a new member of the covenant into the world. So why is there a sin offering? The answer is in the type. This is not about her sin. This is about the human condition. Every person born comes into this world corrupted by the fallen nature. Every birth is a new person entering a fallen system. The sin offering is not because the mother sinned, it is because the child has entered a world of sin. The mother, having birthed the child into that world, brings an offering on behalf of that child's entry into a fallen realm. But here is what breaks the whole thing wide open. The burnt offering is a different sacrifice. A burnt offering in Paleo Hebrew is Olah, Aleph, Lamed, He. Aleph is strength/leader. Lamed is shepherd/authority. He is behold/revelation. An Olah offering is when you voluntarily give up something precious to show your complete submission to Yah's authority. It rises completely. Everything is consumed as a sweet savor to the Most High. So a woman brings a burnt offering, complete surrender, and a sin offering, atonement for the fallen state the child enters. She is essentially saying, I have brought forth a child into your covenant. This child is born in the fallen world. I surrender my rights to this child completely to you. I acknowledge that without your atonement through sacrifice, this child cannot stand before you. This is prophecy. Do you understand what this is predicting? This is the mother of Yah's people bringing an offering. This is Mary, the mother of Yad-Heh-Wah-Shenayim, making the same offering when Yad-Heh-Wah-Shenayim was born. Luke chapter 2, verses 24 through 24 records this. Mary and Joseph brought Yad-Heh-Wah-Shenayim to Jerusalem for purification, according to the law of Mem-Shin-Heh, and they offered a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Exactly what Leviticus 12 verse 8 says for those who cannot afford a lamb. The Son of the Most High, Yud-Heh-Wah-Shen-Ayin himself, was brought to the temple under this law. He came through the covenant process. He submitted to the ritual. He was circumcised. He underwent purification. Everything Leviticus 12 describes, he lived, because he was living out the shadow. He was the substance that the shadow pointed to. The spiritual circumcision now activated. Here's where this gets urgent for right now in 2026. We do not do physical circumcision anymore. That is not because the law was done away with. That is lazy theology pushed by churches trying to avoid the hard conversations. We do not do physical circumcision anymore because the substance has come. Yad-Heh-Wah-Shen-Ayin fulfilled the entire old system. The shadow is complete. Now we operate under the substance. Colossians chapter 2, verses 11 through 13 says, In whom also ye are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, and putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ, buried with him in baptism, wherein also ye are risen with him, through the faith of the operation of God, who has raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your sins, and the uncircumcision of your flesh, hath he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. Circumcision made without hands, not a knife, not flesh, spiritual, a cutting away of the covering that hides who you really are. Yod-Heh-Wah-Shen-Ayin does this when you recognize his name and submit to his covenant. The Paleo Hebrew name, Yod-Heh-Wah-Shen-Ayin, carries frequency. When you speak it, when you invoke it, when you declare it, you are accessing the spiritual circumcision that happened at his resurrection on the 8th day. Every time you align yourself with the covenant, you are being spiritually circumcised. The covering that hides your true nature, your identity as one of Yah's covenant people, is cut away through recognition of the name. This is no longer a physical act in the flesh. This is a spiritual reality operating right now through the power of the name and through faith in what Yad-Heh-Wah-Shin Ayin accomplished. Romans chapter 2, verses 28 and 29 says, "For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God." Inwardly, in the heart, in the spirit, not in the letter, not in the flesh. The true circumcision, the spiritual circumcision, is an internal transformation. It is the cutting away of the false self, the carnal nature, the covering that hides your true identity as one of Yah's covenant people. This is what Leviticus 12 was pointing to the whole time. The 8th day, the circumcision, the purification, the blood, the offering, all of it, shadow pointing to substance. And now, in this generation, Yah is calling his people to undergo spiritual circumcision through alignment with his true name and his true covenant. This is not optional extra credit. This is the foundation of everything that comes next. The serpent seed knew this. That is why they tried so damn hard to hide what Leviticus 12 actually means. They knew that if Israel understood that the entire old system pointed to spiritual transformation through Yad-Heh-Wah-Shin Ayin's name and authority, our people would rise up. We would understand that we are not under a dead law anymore. We are under a living covenant operating through spiritual power. In part 2, we are going to break down the Paleo-Hebrew letter structure of Leviticus 12 and show you the engineering blueprint encoded in the words themselves. You are going to see how Yah designed this chapter using sacred geometry and letter sequences that connect directly to how he structured creation itself. You are going to understand why these specific words were chosen and what frequency they carry. Part 2, the 8th day blueprint, engineering spiritual circumcision. Now we are stepping into the architecture beneath what part 1 laid bare. Because the 8th day is not just a number Yah chose at random, and spiritual circumcision is not just metaphorical language some preacher threw around. This is engineering. This is specification. And when you see how the letters, the numbers, the timings, and the blood all interconnect, you will understand why the serpent seed worked so damn hard to keep Israel from grasping what Leviticus 12 actually contains. The Paleo-Hebrew letter, architecture, reading the blueprint. Let me take you deeper into how Yah actually designed this chapter, using the Paleo-Hebrew letters themselves. Most people read Leviticus 12 in English and think it is just a ceremonial law about blood and timing. But when you break it down letter by letter, using the original pictographic script, you are not reading a religious instruction. You are reading technical specifications encoded in sacred geometry. Look at the Hebrew word for circumcision, Mem Lamed He. Mem is water. It is mighty. It is chaos. It is the substance that flows and connects everything. But Mem as the first letter also means completion of the first cycle, the womb, the source. Lamed is a shepherd's staff. It means authority. It means teaching. It means elevation to a higher state. He is revelation or behold. When you read Mem Lamed He, right to left, through the pictographic meaning, you are reading completion of source, flowing through shepherding authority that brings about revelation. That is what circumcision does. It reveals the hidden truth by cutting away the covering. Now stack that onto the timing. The number 7, Zion, is a sword or weapon. 7 represents completion of a cycle, the turning of a full wheel. Every 7th day completes a week. Every 7th year completes a cycle of work. On the 7th day, the natural order is complete. But then comes the 8th day, and 8 is beyond the natural cycle. 8 is transcendence. It is new order emerging from the old order being completed. When you understand this at the LETR level, you see that Yah did not just pick these numbers because they sounded nice. He engineered them. He took pictographic letters that show their meaning in their ancient shapes, arranged them in sequence, and created a technical program that the human brain processes at every level simultaneously: visual, verbal, conceptual, and spiritual. The Sefer Yetzirah, the master engineer's manual for how he constructed creation using the 22 Paleo-Hebrew letters, teaches that Yah combined these letters like a programmer combines functions and operators to build a system. The letters are not just sound markers, they are functional units. Each one carries a shape, geometry, and a force, creative power. When arranged in sequence, they compile creation. Leviticus 12 is compiled the same way. Every word is selected. Every letter sequence is deliberate. You are not reading poetry. You are reading source code, translated into ceremonial language so the Levites could execute the program through physical ritual. The 8, where the spiritual revolution happens. Let me break down what the 8th day actually represents in the structure of creation and covenant. Creation happened in 6 days. On the 7th day, Yah rested. Shabbat, the Sabbath. That is completion of the natural order. Creation is finished. The cycle turns full. And then comes the 8th day, the day after the Sabbath completion, the day that begins a new week, a new cycle, a new order. This is not arbitrary. Watch what happens in Scripture every time the 8th day appears. First, circumcision on the 8th day in Leviticus chapter 12, cutting away the flesh covering on the day after the natural cycle completes. Second, the Feast of Booths includes an 8th day, a special convocation after the 7 days of the feast are complete. Numbers chapter 29 verse 36 says, "On the 8th day ye shall have a solemn assembly." After completion comes assembly. After the natural cycle turns comes gathering. Third, wave offering or first fruits. After the Sabbath, on the 8th day, which is the first day of the week, the priest waves the sheaf of first fruits before Yah. That is the beginning of the harvest count. After natural completion comes new beginning. Fourth, and this is the master clue, Yod He Waw Shin Ayin rose from the dead on what day? The first day of the week, which is also the 8th day when you count from the Sabbath of the previous week. He completed the old order, crucified on the 6th day, rested in the grave on the 7th, and on the 8th day he emerged in new form, new power, new order. That is not coincidence. That is prophecy encoded into the number system. The Paleo-Hebrew letter Ket, which is a fence or enclosure, is pictographically the number 8. A fence encloses space and separates what is inside from what is outside. The 8th day is the barrier between the old order and the new order. It is the membrane through which transformation passes. When a boy is circumcised on the 8th day, his flesh is marked on the day of transition. His body enters the covenant on the day that separates completion from beginning. The timing is not random, it is architectural. It says, "This child has completed the natural gestation in the womb, 7 days of uncleanness representing the 7-day cycle. And now, on the 8th day, he is marked spiritually. His covenant identity is revealed by cutting away the covering." The woman's timeline, purification or marking. Now let us circle back to the woman and her purification, because this is where every church gets it wrong, and the wrongness is intentional. Look at verse 4 again. "And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 30 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled." Most preachers read this as, the woman is unclean. She must stay away from holy things. She is in a state of spiritual contamination that lasts for 1 month. That is bullshit, and it is the exact interpretation the serpent seed wants you to have. because it demonizes motherhood and makes women feel ashamed of their own bodies and their participation in the covenant. Here's what the text actually says when you read it with precision. She does not touch hallowed things. She does not enter the sanctuary, but she is not unclean. She is marked. She has been set apart because her body has literally participated in bringing a new covenant member into the world. Listen to what hallowed means in Paleo Hebrew. Kof Dalet Shin. Kof is a crown or eye, representing holiness and sight. Dalet is a door or pathway. Shin is teeth or fire, consuming, separating. Hallowed things are things set apart from common use, marked with distinction, holy unto Yah. The woman cannot touch hallowed things, not because she is dirty, but because she is saturated with holiness. Her body has made a holy thing, a new human bearing the covenant mark. She is too sanctified, too marked, too full of the sacred work to mix with the ordinary sanctuary ritual. This is the same principle as why Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin told Memresh Yod Mil, Mary, in John chapter 20, verse 17, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father." After the resurrection, he could not be touched because he was in a state of elevated holiness, transitioning between realms. The separation is not about contamination. It is about a shift in state, a marking with something so potent it requires separation from normal operations. The woman who has given birth has her body marked by the blood of life-giving. She is sanctified by participation in continuing the covenant line. That is why she is separated, not hidden away in shame, but set apart as one who has performed one of the highest spiritual functions available to a woman, bearing a covenant member. The number games, 33 and 66, as divine encoding. Now here's where this gets wild, and every camp pushing the women are less valued interpretation gets exposed as preachers of false doctrine. For a male child, the woman purifies for 33 days after the 8-day circumcision period. 33 is Yud, appearing 3 times plus 3 ones. 10 represents divine completeness in the Paleo Hebrew. Yud is a hand, work, divine action. 3 times 10 is 3 cycles of divine work. 3 ones is triple completion. What is the significance of 33? Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin walked the earth for 33 and a half years before he was crucified. 33, the number of the Messiah, the timeline of the redemptive work. When a woman purifies for 33 days after bearing a male child, a son who carries the patrilineal covenant seed, she is participating in a prophetic pattern that mirrors the Messiah's earthly life. For a female child, the woman purifies for 66 days. That is double 33. Why double? Because 66 encodes something different in the spiritual arithmetic. 6 is the number of man. 60 is 6 tens. Completion multiplied by the factor of man. 66 is man appearing twice, the original man and the woman who bears the image of man. It is the multiplication of the human line itself. But here's what destroys the women are less valued false doctrine completely. The woman who bears a daughter is not less holy, not less significant. She is entering into the prophetic role of bearing the bearer of the Messiah. Every woman who ever gave birth to a daughter was potentially bearing the womb from which the Messiah's mother would come. Every daughter is a carrier of that possibility. The double purification is not extra time because daughters are worthless. It is amplified time because the multiplication of the female line is what brings forth the woman who will bear Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin himself. The timing is not punishment, it is prophetic encoding of the centrality of the female line to the entire redemptive narrative. When Mary was purified after bearing Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin, she was living out this exact pattern. Her purification was not shame, it was her body being marked as the one who carried out the promise. That is why she is honored throughout history as the Mother of the Most High. The offering. What is really being atoned for? Verses 6-8 lay out the critical layer that most churches completely botch. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest, who shall offer it before the Lord, and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. Two separate offerings, completely different spiritual function. The burnt offering, Ola in Paleo-Hebrew, Aleph Lamed He, is a voluntary surrender. The entire animal is consumed on the altar, rising completely as a sweet savor. When you bring a burnt offering, you are saying, I am giving up my right to this thing. I surrender it completely to Yah's authority. I acknowledge that I own nothing. All belongs to the Most High, and all is under His dominion. The sin offering, Chatat in Paleo-Hebrew, Chet Tet Aleph Ta, is about atonement for the fallen condition. When you bring a sin offering, you are saying, I acknowledge that I, or this situation, exists in a fallen state. Without atonement through blood, there is separation from the Most High. I need the bridge that only blood sacrifice can provide. So the mother brings, I completely surrender my rights to this child, to Yah's dominion. And I acknowledge that this child is born into a fallen world, and without your atonement through blood, that child is separated from you. This is not about the mother's sin. The mother has not committed any sin by giving birth. She has performed one of the most holy acts possible. But the child has entered the world in a fallen state. The child needs atonement to stand before the Most High. The mother brings the offerings on behalf of the child and on behalf of acknowledging her complete surrender of that child to Yah's purposes. Now watch what happens when this pattern is fulfilled. Mary brought Yod Hey Waw Shanayan to the temple in Luke chapter 2. She was subject to the law of Mem Shin Hey, Moses. She brought her offering. But here is the kicker. The son she brought was the one who would become the sacrifice. The child she offered would grow to be the Lamb of Yah who takes away the sin of the world. She brought the burnt offering, complete surrender, and the sin offering, atonement for the fallen state, for the child who would embody both, complete surrender to Yah's will and atonement for all Israel through His blood. The mother offering lambs for her son is the shadow. The mother offering her son, who is the lamb, is the substance. When you see that connection, you see how Leviticus 12 is not just a law about cleansing. It is a prophecy about what will happen when the Most High walked the earth in the flesh. The gateway. Why this matters in 2026. Here is what makes this urgent for right now. We are living in a time when Yah is calling His people to spiritual circumcision, not a knife cutting flesh. That ritual was the shadow, and the shadow is complete. Now it is spiritual, and it happens when you acknowledge the true name, submit to the true covenant, and cut away the coverings, the false identities, the false doctrines, the false religions that hide who you really are. The 8th day pattern is active right now. We are in an 8th day spiritually, a day beyond the completion of the old order, a day where a new order is emerging. The old system of religious control through churches and denominational gatekeeping is dying. The old order of information control through their institutions and media monopoly is crumbling. And on this 8th day, Yah is calling Israel to a purification, a spiritual circumcision where the coverings come off and the real identity, the real covenant, the real power emerges. When you undergo spiritual circumcision through recognition of Yod Hey Waw Shin Ayin's true name and submission to His covenant, you are entering into what the 8th day means. You are stepping beyond the natural completion into a new supernatural order. You are cutting away the covering, the false identity your oppressors gave you, the false doctrines they force-fed you in churches, the false history they taught you, and revealing your true nature as one of the covenant people. The woman in Leviticus 12 brings an offering for the child, a complete surrender and an acknowledgement of the fallen state. When Israel undergoes spiritual circumcision, you are doing the same thing at a collective level, surrendering completely to Yah's purposes and acknowledging that without his atonement through Yad He Wah Shin Ayin's blood, you are separated from him. But here's what they do not want you to know. Spiritual circumcision is not exception. It is not an advanced add-on for spiritual elites. It is the foundation of the new covenant. Colossians chapter 2 verse 11 says, "Those who are circumcised spiritually have put off the body of the sins of the flesh." You cannot operate in the power of Yad He Wah Shin Ayin. You cannot tap into the frequency of the name. You cannot access the covenant protection and provision without undergoing spiritual circumcision. And the number system is still operating. The 8th day is still a day of transformation. The 33 pattern is still encoding the Messiah's work. The 66 pattern is still amplifying the continuation of the human line toward redemption. These are not dead laws from an ancient book. They are active frequencies running in the background of reality, waiting for Israel to recognize them and align with them. In part 3, we are going to break down the blood covenants and show you exactly how the blood that comes from the woman's body connects directly to the biometric authenticate system Yah built into the entire covenant structure. You are going to see how blood is not just a liquid. It is the access key, the security clearance, the frequency signature that connects you to the throne room. And when you understand that, you will understand why the serpent seed has worked so hard to keep Israel's blood separated. Because a people who do not understand their own blood power are a people who cannot access their own dominion. Part 3, the blood payment, why purification cuts deeper than flesh. So when you got to part 2, you understood that the 8th day is not random. It is the threshold between the natural cycle and the supernatural order. The woman's purification timeline is not punishment. It is the prophetic encoding of Israel's own redemption through blood covenant. And the offerings she brings are her complete surrender and her acknowledgement that without atonement, there is separation from the throne. Now we are stepping into the blood layer itself. And this is where the serpent seed went absolutely insane, trying to keep you from seeing what Leviticus 12 is actually revealing. The blood is the access code, not poetry, not metaphor. Listen to me. The blood flowing from a woman's body after childbirth is not just biological waste that needs to be cleaned up. That is the surface reading, and it will keep you broke spiritually forever. Yah does not describe natural processes randomly in scripture. Every detail is engineered specification. When Leviticus 12 verse 4 says, "She shall continue in the blood of her purifying," that phrase is drop-coded. It is a clue wrapped in ceremonial language. The Hebrew phrase is dalet mem, blood. Break that down through Paleo-Hebrew. Dalet equals door, pathway. Mem equals water, mighty, chaos. Blood is not just a fluid. It is the door through which mighty power flows. It is the pathway connecting the living to the source of life itself. Every time blood spills in Torah, it is because a door is being opened, a channel is being activated, a frequency is being established between the natural realm and the throne room. Now listen to what Leviticus 17 verse 11 says. And this verse will break open your understanding of what blood actually does. "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul." The life is in the blood, not the body, not the flesh, the life itself. Yah said, "I have given it to you upon the altar." Not I command you to use it, but I gave it. Meaning, he engineered it that way. He designed the system so that blood is the currency of the covenant. Blood is how you buy access to the throne. Blood is how you authenticate yourself to the system. Blood is how you prove your connection to the bloodline that carries the covenant. When a woman gives birth and bleeds, she is not just experiencing a biological event. She is shedding the seal of the covenant. Her body has produced a new covenant member, and that production comes with a blood cost. The blood that flows is the proof that she has participated in the covenant continuation. That is why she cannot touch hallowed things, not because she is dirty, but because she is saturated with the evidence of covenant making. Her blood has marked her as a woman who has literally born a new life into the covenant line. This is so damn profound, and the churches have twisted it into shame and disgust. They made women feel like childbirth made them unclean, instead of showing them that the blood was their authentication to the highest spiritual function a woman can perform. Bearing a covenant member is not a curse. It is a mark of honor that temporarily sets you apart because you have been touched by the frequency of creation itself. The biometric security system, why blood is the fingerprint of covenant. Here is what will blow your mind when you understand it at the engineering level. Every human being carries a unique biological signature. Your DNA is yours alone. Your blood type is recorded. Your cellular structure is individual. When you understand that Yah built this specificity into every person's biology, you realize he was building a security system before humanity even knew what that term meant. In the modern world, banks use biometric authentication, fingerprints, face recognition, iris scanning, DNA databases to verify identity and grant access to secure systems. But where did this technology come from? The Most High designed it into the human body first. Your fingerprints are unique. Your DNA is unique. Your blood is yours. Now flip to the blood covenant system in Torah. When Abraham made a covenant with Yah, what happened? Genesis chapter 15 verse 8 says, Abraham asked for a sign, and Yah responded by having Abraham take animals, cut them in pieces, and pass between them. The blood was spilled. The covenant was sealed in blood. That blood was not just ceremonial, it was the biometric lock. It said, this blood, this family line, this seed, these people are now registered to my covenant system. They are authenticated. They are cleared for access. When a man's foreskin is circumcised on the 8th day, what happens? His blood is shed. That is the registration event. That is when his individual biological signature, his bloodline, his seed, his genetic inheritance gets marked in the covenant system. His body now carries a physical scar that identifies him as having been registered at birth. It is a biometric marker that says, this person belongs to the covenant line. This person's blood carries the clearance. This is not metaphor. This is engineering. The entire Old Testament sacrificial system was built on the principle that blood equals access. You want to approach the throne? Bring blood sacrifice. Why? Because without the proper Kodesh, without the bloodline passport, you cannot authenticate. You will not clear the security gate. You will not be allowed entry. Now here's where this connects directly to Leviticus 12 and why the serpent seed were desperate to hide this layer. The woman who gives birth has shed blood from her own body. That blood is the proof that a new bloodline member has been created. Her blood is the evidence that the covenant continues. When she brings her offering after the purification days, she is essentially updating the system. She is saying, here is the blood evidence that I have borne a covenant member. Accept the sacrifice. Register this child into your system. Authenticate this new life into the bloodline. The sacrifice itself is the confirmation protocol. The blood she sheds through the animal sacrifice is the validation that her body's blood work, the childbirth, has been successful. It is a 2-layer Biometric handshake. Layer 1. Her body's blood proves she has produced a new covenant member. Layer 2. The sacrificial blood confirms that this new member is being registered into Yah's system with full covenant access. Do you understand what this is? This is not just religion. This is a biological security system where Israel's very blood, their genetic inheritance, their lineage, their seed, is the access key to all of Yah's provision, protection, and power. The 66-day pattern, the code running beneath the code. Now let me show you something that will crack your mind open about why the timeline for bearing a female child is exactly double the male timeline. For a male child, 7 days unclean, then circumcision on day 8, then 33 more days equals 40 days total purification. For a female child, 14 days unclean, then 33 more days equals 66 days total purification. Stop. That is intentional. That is engineered. 66 appears nowhere in scripture by accident. The number 66 in sacred geometry and numerology represents the multiplication of man. 6 is the number of man. It is the completion of creation where Yah rested on the 7th day, leaving 6 days as the work cycle. 60 is 6 times 10, the number of man appearing at the scale of divine completeness. 66 is that number double, the woman who carries the seed of man plus the new human she produces. But here's what destroys the false women are less valued doctrine, like a wrecking ball through drywall. 66 is also the gateway number. Do you know what Yad-Heh-Wah-Shin-Ayin's genealogy is in Matthew chapter 1? 42 generations from Abraham to Yad-Heh-Wah-Shin-Ayin. And what does the Matthew account emphasize? Mary, the woman, the mother, the carrier. Every father listed in that genealogy was a carrier of the promise. But Mary, the woman who bore the Messiah, she is the one who fulfilled it in flesh. When a woman purifies for 66 days after bearing a daughter, she is prophetically positioned to give birth to a daughter who might give birth to the Messiah's mother. Every woman who bore a daughter in Israel was potentially the grandmother of the woman who would bear the Savior of all Israel. That is why her purification is longer. That is why the time is doubled. That is why she is set apart. It is not degradation, it is elevation to the highest possible spiritual function. The number 66 is woven into the end times as well. Revelation chapter 13 verse 18 mentions 600, 666, 666 as the number of the beast. But that is an inverted code. The beast system perverts the number of man and woman combined. It takes what was meant to be the pathway of covenant continuation and corrupts it into a system of control and surveillance. The mark of the beast is not a microchip. It is spiritual corruption of the blood covenant itself. It is alignment with the false covenant that replaces the true biometric authentication system Yah built into bloodline and seed. When Israel understands their blood is the access code, they refuse the beast's counterfeit system. When a woman understands that bearing a child is not shame, but registration of new covenant members, she refuses to surrender her womb to the enemy's agenda. 66 days of purification for a daughter is saying, this child carries the potential to continue the covenant line toward the redemption of all Israel. She is set apart. She is marked. She is sacred. The offering, where the accounting happens. Now look at verses 6 and 7 again, and watch how the entire covenant ledger gets updated. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest, who shall offer it before the Lord, and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is a transaction, a settlement of accounts. Let me break down what is happening in the spiritual ledger. The woman has completed her purification. Her blood has flowed and marked the boundary between the old cycle and the new order. Now she brings 2 offerings, not 1, 2. Why? The burnt offering, Olah, Aleph Lamed Hey, is a gift offering. It is voluntary. It says, I am surrendering this animal completely. Let it be consumed entirely. I am giving it all to you, with no expectation of return. When a woman brings a burnt offering after childbirth, she is saying, I surrender my rights to this child completely. I have no claim on this child. All authority over this child belongs to Yah. But here is the rebellion that the serpent seed does not want you to understand. A mother's surrender of her child to Yah is not weakness, it is power. It is a woman taking dominion over her own womb by declaring that the child she bore belongs to the Most High's purposes first. She is not surrendering her child to be used up or disposed of. She is dedicating the child to covenant service. She is saying, this child will serve Yah's purposes above all earthly desires. Then comes the sin offering, Chatat. This is the atonement offering. It says, I acknowledge that this child is born into a fallen world. Without your atonement, this child is separated from you. I need the blood bridge that only sacrificial atonement can provide. So the mother brings complete surrender and acknowledgement of the child's fallen state. She is exalting the child as a covenant member and humbling the child by recognizing he or she cannot stand before the throne without atonement. This is the heart of grace. This is what the false Christian church destroyed when they tried to make grace into a free pass with no cost. Yah's grace is not costless. It is purchased by blood. It is not automatic. It is applied through sacrifice and atonement. When Mary brought Yod Hey Waw Shin Ayin to the temple, she brought a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons because she could not afford the lamb. Luke chapter 2 verse 24 records this. Mary was poor. She was a peasant woman in occupied Israel, but she brought exactly what the law required because she understood that her son, the most holy child ever born, needed to be registered into the covenant system the same way every other child was registered. Here is what shatters the false humility they teach in churches. Mary brought the sin offering for the Messiah. The Most High in human flesh came under the same law that applies to every other child born under the covenant. Why? Because Yod Hey Waw Shin was not just coming as a spiritual stray ghost, he was coming as a full human in full covenant relationship with his people. He submitted to the law. He underwent purification. He had his parents' blood and the covenant blood, both flowing through him. The spiritual circumcision now, the activation protocol. Here is what is happening right now in 2026 that the false churches are desperate to keep you from understanding. The physical circumcision system is done. The ritual is complete. Yod Hey Waw Shin Ayin walked through that entire system, lived it, fulfilled it, and it became obsolete when he rose on the 8th day. But what replaced it is 1,000 times more powerful because it is spiritual circumcision, the cutting away of the false coverings that hide who you really are. When you recognize the true name, Yod Hey Waw Hey, and call on Yod Hey Waw Shin Ayin with submission and faith, you are activating the spiritual circumcision protocol. You are cutting away the covering, the false identity your oppressors gave you, the false doctrines the churches force-fed you, the false history that denies your reality as one of the covenant people. Romans chapter 2, verse 28 and 29 says this explicitly. For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. Inwardly, in the heart, in the spirit, that is where the real circumcision happens now. And listen, it says your praise is not from men, but from God. That means Yah himself recognizes you when you undergo spiritual circumcision. Your status in his covenant system gets updated. You get authenticated. You get cleared for access to covenant blessings that were locked out from you before. But here is what the demonic false church system does not want you to know. Spiritual circumcision is painful. It cuts. When you cut away the false identity, you have to grieve that false self. When you cut away the false doctrines you were taught in churches, you have to face the fact that you were deceived. When you cut away the false history and accept the truth that your people were enslaved, brutalized, and had their names stolen, you have to rage against the injustice that is still happening. The pain is real. The loss is real. But the freedom that comes after is worth every damn drop of blood that gets spilled in the process. The purification cycle repeating, the covenant rhythm in your life. Now listen to what most preachers completely miss about the structure of Leviticus 12. After the woman completes her purification and brings her offering, she is cleansed. The text says, she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. That is not just a return to normal. That is a reset. That is her covenant status being recalibrated. She has been set apart, marked, recognized as a participant in the covenant continuation. Now she re-enters the community in a new status. But here's the pattern that repeats. If she bears another child, the entire cycle begins again. 7 more days of separation. The same offerings, the same purification, over and over. That is intentional. That is saying every time you produce a new covenant member, you are reactivating the authentication system. Every time you bring a child into the covenant, you are renewing your covenant relationship with Yah. It is not a one-time event. It is a rhythm, a cycle, a pattern that repeats through your entire life as you continue bearing children. This is how Yah designed the covenant to be lived, not just believed. It is woven into the rhythm of life itself. The women who bear children are the ones who carry forward the entire covenant continuation. They are not background players in a male-dominated system. They are the pipeline through which the covenant flows. And when you understand that spiritual circumcision is ongoing, not a one-time event, you realize that every time you cut away a false belief and align yourself with Yah's truth, you are going through the spiritual equivalent of purification and renewal. You undergo spiritual circumcision the first time you truly recognize Yod Hey Waw Shin Ayin's authority and submit. Your false identity gets cut away. Your spirit gets cleansed. You are authenticated into the covenant. But that is not the end. That is the beginning. As you grow, as you learn, as the Spirit reveals more truth, you go through purification cycles again and again. You cut away more false beliefs. You shed the old mindsets. You bleed out the poison that the world poured into your system. And each time, you emerge more aligned with Yah's truth, more authenticated, more cleared for deeper access into His power and wisdom. The 8th day pattern in your timeline, where you are right now. The serpent seed figured out something profound about how Yah structures time. The 8th day is a gate. It is a threshold. It is the point where the natural cycle completes and the supernatural order begins. When Yod Hey Waw Shin Ayin rose on the 8th day, he was not just coming back to life. He was emerging from one operational order into another. The old covenant system, based on physical ritual and temple service, had completed its cycle. Now the new order was beginning, based on spiritual alignment and faith in the finished work. Now watch this. We are living in the 8th day era right now. The old system of information control through churches and institutions has completed its cycle. The serpent sees monopoly on what Israel gets to hear, what they get to read, what history they get to believe. That system is breaking down in real time. The barriers are falling. The gatekeepers are losing their grip. And in this moment, Israel is being called to undergo spiritual circumcision. Not gradually, not passively, with urgency, with fire. Your false identity is being exposed. The lies you were told about your own history are being revealed. The churches that lied to you are being dismantled. Your people are waking up. That is the 8th day pattern manifesting right now. You are at a threshold. You can either stay in the old order, the dying system that kept you enslaved and deceived, or you can cross into the new order where Israel rises with knowledge of who we really are and what power Yah has given us. The choice is yours, but know this: when you cross that threshold, there is pain, there is blood, there is a cutting away of everything false. But on the other side is freedom and authority that the world has tried to convince you was never yours. The 8th day is here. The purification cycle for Israel is active. The authentication protocol is running. Are you going to step through the gate? In part 4, we are going to bring it all together and show you how every single element of Leviticus 12 points to one thing: your dominion as a redeemed and restored Israelite in a world that is about to be shaken to its foundations. Part 4, the altar call. Spiritual circumcision begins now. And here is where it all comes home, family. Everything we laid bare in parts 1, 2, and 3 was building toward this moment. Not just understanding what Leviticus 12 means, but acting on what it demands from your life right now in 2026. The choice before Israel. The gate is open. Listen to what Yad Hey Wau Shinaim said in Matthew chapter 15, verse 24, when the northern kingdom Israelite woman living as a Gentile came to him begging for help. I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He came only for Israel. The entire redemptive work, his flesh, his blood, his death, his resurrection on the 8th day, all of it was for the covenant people. Not as some group scattered somewhere else, but as you, the so-called Negro, the scattered Israelite worldwide, the captive people who have been stripped of identity and buried under lies for centuries. The Most High is calling Israel to spiritual circumcision, not as an option, not as something for spiritual elites, but as the foundation requirement to access what comes next. When you read Leviticus 12, you are not reading ancient history. You are reading a prototype. It's happening in your timeline right now. Here is why. Leviticus 12 describes the birth of a new covenant member. A child enters the world. On the 8th day, that child is marked through circumcision. The covering is cut away. The child is registered into the covenant bloodline through the shedding of blood. Then the mother brings her offering, complete surrender and acknowledgement of the atonement that registers the child into the system. Israel right now is in that 8th day season. The old system is dead. The 7-day cycle of the old world order has completed. The natural order is finished. And now, on the 8th day, the day beyond the natural completion, a new order is being established. A spiritual birth, a new Israel emerging from centuries of captivity and lies. But that emergence requires spiritual circumcision. That means the covering comes off. The false identity has to be cut away. The false doctrines, the false history, the false religion that kept you mentally enslaved. All of it has to be stripped from your mind and spirit, like foreskin being removed on the 8th day. What the covering hides, and why they fought so hard to keep it on. Let me be explicit about what we are talking about here, because the serpent seed was desperately trying to keep this from you. The covering, the foreskin in the physical ritual, represents anything that hides your true nature. For centuries, your true nature as an Israelite has been hidden under a false covering. The covering of miseducation. You were taught that your people were nobody, that you came from Africa with no history, no civilization, no intellectual tradition, that your ancestors were always slaves, that slavery happened to you, but you had nothing to do with creating a culture, building systems, writing scripture, or walking with the Most High as a covenant people. That is a lie wrapped around your mind like scar tissue. Your real history as the people who wrote Torah, who built Jerusalem, who walked with prophets, who carried the covenant from Abraham through the Messiah himself, that truth was hidden under a covering of miseducation designed to make you feel less than. The covering of false religion. You were taught to worship in churches where a man in a suit told you what the Bible says instead of reading it yourself. You were taught doctrines that were invented by the serpent seed: Trinity, rapture, free will, guardian angels, eternal hell. None of that is in Torah. You were taught that submission and suffering and waiting for heaven was godly. You were taught that asking questions was sin. You were taught that black churches and white churches were both the same because they all preached Jesus. But that man they preached was a sanitized, whitewashed version of Yod He Wah Shin Ayin. The real Messiah came for Israel first, lived the covenant personally, challenged the religious establishment, and refused to compromise the truth to make people comfortable. That Messiah was hidden under a covering of false Christianity designed to keep you passive and defeated. The covering of stolen identity. Your real name, Israelite, the covenant people, the carriers of Yah's promise, was covered up under fake identities designed to erase your knowledge of self. You were called Negro, Spanish for black, as if your only identity was your skin color. You were called African American, as if your history was Africa, when your real ancestral connection was Israel. You were called by slave names, names given to you by oppressors as a mark of ownership. Your spiritual identity as one of the people who will inherit dominion was covered by identities of oppression and shame. And when you tried to reclaim your real identity, to say, I am Israel, you were mocked. You were called crazy. You were told you were delusional for claiming that you are the chosen people. That covering of stolen identity kept millions of our people from even attempting to step into who they really are. The covering of spiritual blindness. You were kept spiritually blind to your own power. You were taught that miracles only happened in the Bible, that prophecy was done, that Yah does not speak today, that you have to beg white people for access to what Yah already gave you, that your oppressors control your destiny, that resistance is futile, that you have no power and never will. Spiritual blindness kept you from seeing that the same power that raised Yod He Wah Shin Ayin from the dead is available to you if you access it through the covenant. The covering of spiritual blindness meant you could never see what you were capable of. And the serpent seed went absolutely insane fighting to keep those coverings in place, because they know that if Israel ever removes the covering and sees who we really are, the entire system of oppression collapses. The 8th day activation protocol, what spiritual circumcision actually means. Now let me be precise about what happens when you undergo spiritual circumcision through recognition of the true name and submission to the covenant. The Paleo-Hebrew for covenant is Bet Resh Yud Ta. Bet equals house/dwelling. Resh equals head/authority. Yud equals hand/work/execution. Ta equals mark/sign. A covenant is a dwelling place of authority, marked and executed through hands and work. When you enter covenant with Yah through Yud He Wah Shin Ayin, you are entering a house where the Most High's authority is the law, and your work is to execute His will on the earth. That is what the covenant means. But here is what breaks everything open. You cannot enter that house with a covering still on. You cannot execute divine authority while hidden under false identity. You cannot access the power if the false self is still in control. When you undergo spiritual circumcision, here's what actually happens. First, the false identity gets cut away through revelation. Yah reveals to you who you really are, not who your oppressors told you that you are, not who the world convinced you that you are, but who the genealogy proves you are, who the covenant declares you are, who the prophecy prophesies you are, an Israelite, one of the chosen people, one carrying the seed of Abraham through whom all nations will be blessed. That revelation is the cutting. That is when the false covering starts to peel off. Second, the false covering comes off through separation. You have to separate yourself from the churches that lied to you. Separate yourself from the false history they taught you. Separate yourself from the doctrines of demons that kept you powerless. That separation is painful. It means grieving what you thought was truth. It means rage at discovering you were deceived. But on the other side of that separation is clarity. That is the 8th day shift, moving from the old system of religious control into a new system of direct covenant with Yah through Yad Hey Washin Ayin's name and authority. Third, the blood gets shed through that cutting. When the foreskin is circumcised, blood flows. When spiritual circumcision happens, your blood flows too, through tears, when you realize how deceived you have been, through the blood of your convictions, when you have to stand alone against family, friends, and the entire church system that wants to keep you asleep, through the blood of your sacrifice, when you lay down what is easy and comfortable to pick up what is hard and true. The blood that flows in spiritual circumcision is your commitment to the covenant at any cost. Fourth, the child is registered into the system through that blood. When your blood is shed in covenant commitment, when you declare the true names, when you study the real Torah, when you refuse the lies no matter how hard they push back, when you align yourself with Yad Hey Washin Ayin's authority, that is when your spiritual status changes. You get authenticated, you get cleared, you get registered in the covenant system at a level you have never experienced before. The frequency of the name becomes active in your life. The protection of the covenant activates. The provision of the covenant flows. The wisdom of the covenant floods your understanding. That is what the 8th day brings. Not gradually, not someday, but when you make the commitment. And here's what the demon churches do not want you to know. This spiritual circumcision is irreversible once it activates. Once you have truly undergone it, once the covering is cut, once the false identity is shed, once your blood is shed in covenant commitment, you cannot go back to being asleep. You cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot unsee what has been revealed. You are marked now. You are registered now. You are carrying the covenant signature in your spirit now. The cost of refusing spiritual circumcision, the judgment that awaits. Now let me tell you what happens to those who refuse this. Listen to what Exodus chapter 4, verses 24 through 26 says, and this is visceral. And it came to pass by the way in the end that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go. Then she said, a bloody husband thou art, because of the circumcision. Memshin Hay, Moses himself, nearly got killed by Yah for not being circumcised. His wife had to perform the circumcision right there in the end, or Yah would have destroyed him. This is not metaphor. This is showing you that the covenant mark is not optional. If you are going to stand before the throne, if you are going to do Yah's work, If you are going to carry divine authority, you have to be circumcised. The covering has to come off. Now apply that to spiritual circumcision in the 8th day season. If you refuse to remove the false covering of miseducation, if you stay bound by the lies they taught you about your own history and identity, you are refusing the covenant mark. And Yah does not accept the uncircumcised into his presence. That means you cannot access the power that will let you break free from oppression. The power is locked. You do not have the key. The key is the covenant recognition through spiritual circumcision, and without it, the door stays shut. You cannot stand in judgment when Yah calls the nations. When Yud, Hey, Wah, Shin, Ayin returns to judge every nation that ground Israel under their heel, where are you? Are you going to be marked as one of the covenant people who stood, or are you going to be unmarked, standing with the nations, having refused to be circumcised, having refused to cut away the false identity they gave you? That determination is happening right now through your choices today. You cannot receive the inheritance. When the Most High restores Israel to dominion, when the 8th day shifts into the new order and Israel rises with authority over the nations, that inheritance goes to those who are marked, those who are registered, those who underwent spiritual circumcision, those who cut away the false covering and stood in their true identity as covenant people. If you did not do that, if you refused the circumcision, then what inheritance do you have? What authority? What claim on what Yah promised to his people? And here is what a judgment is. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 49 through 68. When Yah brings a nation against Israel that does not know the language, that will grind you down ferociously. When you are standing in captivity, watching your children enslaved, watching your people destroyed, and you know that spiritual circumcision could have protected you, but you refused it. What are you going to do with that knowledge? You're going to stand in the consequence of your own choice. But listen, that judgment is not inevitable. That is what Yah is telling you right now through this episode. The judgment is the result of refusal. The 8th day is the opportunity to accept. The spiritual circumcision is available. The gate is open. The choice is yours. The offering, what you bring when you cross the threshold. Now here is the most beautiful part of this entire truth, because after the circumcision comes the offering. When a woman undergoes purification and brings her offering in Leviticus 12, she is bringing two things. 1, complete surrender, a burnt offering that is consumed entirely. She is saying, everything I have, every claim I have, every right I think I have, I surrender it completely to your dominion. You own all of it. I own nothing. 2, acknowledgement of atonement, a sin offering that bridges the gap. She is saying, I acknowledge that without your blood payment, without your sacrifice, without your atonement, I am separated from you. I cannot stand before you on my own. I need the bridge that only blood sacrifice provides. When you undergo spiritual circumcision and step into the new order, you are bringing the same offering. You surrender everything. Your career that kept you compromised, your family ties that kept you asleep, your comfort that kept you complacent, your fear that kept you quiet. You are saying, Yah, I give it all to you. I do not care if I lose my job for speaking truth. I do not care if my family disowns me for leaving the church. I do not care if the world calls me crazy for claiming my true identity. I surrender it all to your purposes and your dominion. That surrender is the burnt offering. It goes up in flames. It is consumed. You do not get it back. That is the price of spiritual circumcision. You acknowledge that only Yod Hey Wash Shanaim's blood can save you. Not your own works, not your own intelligence, not your own strength. The only thing that stands between you and complete destruction is the blood of the Messiah that was shed on the cross. That blood paid the price for your past sins. That blood cleansed you from the defilement of the system that tried to drown you. That blood registered you into the covenant when everything else in the world was rejecting you. That is the sin offering. That is the acknowledgement. And when you make that acknowledgement with your whole heart, that is when the cleansing happens. That is when you are purified. That is when you emerge from the 8th day season, marked and registered and authenticated into the covenant system. The 8th day pattern in your life, starting right now. Let me tell you what this means practically in your life, starting this moment. The 8th day pattern means that today, right now in 2026, is a threshold. Everything you knew before was one cycle. Everything that comes next is a different order entirely. You are standing in the space between the old and the new. That space is the 8th day. That space is where transformation happens. If you have been sleeping, caught up in false religion, false history, false identity, you do not have much time left in that sleep. The cycle is completing. The 7th day is ending. The 8th day is here. If you are still covered, still wearing the false identity, still bound by the lies, still trapped in the system, then spiritual circumcision is urgent. Not eventually, not when you get around to it, now. What does that mean for you? First, study the real Torah yourself. Stop letting preachers tell you what it says. Get a King James Bible, the cleanest translation we have, and read Leviticus, read Deuteronomy, read what Yah actually commanded. Break down the Hebrew words. Use the engineering layer we taught you. Investigate. Do not be lazy. The Most High is not going to download truth into your brain while you sleep. You have to work for understanding. You have to shed the laziness of depending on somebody else to feed you spiritually. Second, identify what false covering is still on you. What lies are you still believing about yourself? What false doctrines are you still holding to? What fear is still keeping you quiet? Name it, write it down, make it real so you can start the work of cutting it away. That is the first stage of circumcision, recognizing what needs to be cut. Third, declare the true names with your mouth. Not Jesus, that is a pagan Greek corruption. Not God, that is a vague pagan title. Say Yad-Heh-Wah-Heh when you pray to the Creator. Say Yad-Heh-Wah-Shin Ayin when you invoke the Messiah. When you speak the real names, you are activating the covenant frequency. You are registering yourself into the system. The names carry power. Use them. Fourth, refuse to compromise the truth, even when it costs you everything. That is the 8th day commitment. That is the blood being shed. Every time you speak truth when silence would be easier, you are bleeding for the covenant. Every time you stand alone because your people are still asleep, you are shedding your blood for what you know is right. That sacrifice, that cost, is what marks you. That is what registers you. Do not run from it. Lean into it. Fifth, prepare your mind for what comes next. Because when enough of our people undergo this spiritual circumcision, when enough of us are marked and registered and authenticated into the covenant, what happens is not just individual transformation. What happens is collective rising. The two witnesses, Israel and Judah, will stand on their feet. The nations that ground us under their heel are trembling right now because they can feel it coming. They can sense that our people are waking up. And when enough of us are awake, when enough of us are circumcised spiritually, the entire world order is going to be shaken. That is not rhetoric. That is not hype. That is prophecy. And it is manifesting as we speak. The closing verdict. What happens when you choose this day? Yah is not asking for your permission. He is not waiting for you to feel comfortable. He is not going to make it easy so you can do it in your own time. The 8th day is here. The cycle is complete. The judgment is active. The transformation is happening, whether you step through the gate or whether you stay behind the old veil. Let me read you what Yad-Heh-Wah-Shin Ayin said in Matthew chapter 10, verses 37 through 39. And this is your choice, right now. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. That is the call right now. Family loyalty, shed it if it keeps you asleep. Comfort and safety, lose it if it keeps you compromised. The life you built in the old system, give it up if it was built on lies. Because when you give up the false life, when you lose yourself in pursuit of the real covenant, that is when you find the true life. That is when the 8th day power activates. That is when the transformation is real. Spiritual circumcision through Yad He Wah Shin Ayin is not something that happens to you. It is something you choose, you commit to, and you execute through your own will, aligned with the Most High's will. The covering comes off when you decide it comes off. The false identity is shed when you decide to shed it. The blood is spilled when you decide to stand for truth at any cost. That choice is yours, and you have to make it today, not tomorrow, not when you finish school or get a different job or move to a new place. Today, right after this episode ends, you need to go to Yah in prayer. You need to call on the true names. You need to surrender everything you think you own, your comfort, your reputation, your relationships, your life, to his dominion. You need to acknowledge that only through Yod He Wah Shin Ayin's blood are you saved. And you need to commit that you will spend the rest of your earthly existence cutting away every false thing that keeps you from stepping fully into who you really are as one of the covenant people. When you do that, when you truly do that with your whole heart, something shifts, something activates. You are marked. You are circumcised spiritually. You are registered into the covenant system at a frequency you have never experienced. And from that moment forward, everything changes. The power that seemed impossible becomes accessible. The truth that seemed hidden becomes clear. The identity that seemed like a lie becomes your foundation. You stand different. You speak different. You move different because you are operating from a different source. You are no longer powered by the oppressor system. You are powered by the Most High's covenant. And the nations will see it. They will feel it. They will know that something has shifted in you. And they will be terrified because they understand what spiritual circumcision means. It means you are no longer their property. You are no longer enslaved to their system. You are marked for Yah, and they cannot touch that mark. Family, that is the message. That is what Leviticus 12 is really about. Not an ancient law about blood and waiting, a prophecy about how the Most High will resurrect his people in this 8th day season through spiritual circumcision that cuts away every false thing and registers you into a covenant so powerful that the entire world system is going to collapse under its weight. Thank you for tuning in to Yah First Ministries. I am Brother Betsadeh Lamed Aleph Lamed, and I just gave you the truth. Now it is time for you to do the work. Go steady, go pray, go commit, go undergo that spiritual circumcision, go step through the 8th day gate, and when you do, when enough of our people do, watch what the Most High does to this corrupted world system. Share this episode with every Israelite you know, because if they have not heard this, they cannot choose it. Spread the fire, build a movement, stand together. The 8th day is open, and the covenant is calling. Peace and blessings to you and yours. This has been Yah First Ministries. Stay tuned tomorrow for a very special Pentecost broadcast concerning the end of the age of the heathen. You don't want to miss it. Stay vigilant, family. Our time begins now. Peace.